care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, along with my co-host, Nassau Community College nursing student Virginia Gavin. And today we're continuing a conversation about a non-for-profit organization called the Star Legacy Foundation, which helps people deal with the tragedy of stillbirth. If you missed our first conversation with this wonderful organization, you can find the podcast on iTunes, Android podcasts, and our website, nccradio.org, or wherever you listen to podcasts by searching for Your Family's Health and WHPC. I'd like to welcome back our Executive Director of the Star Legacy Foundation, Lindsey J. Wimmer. She is a pediatric nurse practitioner and recently taught pediatrics, public health, obstetrics, and leadership in nursing department at St. Catherine University. Ms. Wimmer serves on the advisory panel for the Fetal Infant Mortality Review under the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and is certified in perinatal loss care. Lindsey, welcome back to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Lindsey, can you please remind our audience what the Star Foundation is?
Sure. We are a nonprofit that has a presence coast to coast. We have 26 chapters now throughout the United States, and our main goal is to bring awareness to the public about the fact that stillbirth and neonatal death and other forms of poor pregnancy outcome exist, and that they exist more often than many people realize. And so it's something that we all need to be aware of, and because if it doesn't happen to us, we probably know somebody who is affected by this and can really benefit from our support. But beyond that, we really also focus on the research and education, because we know that this has been a very understudied aspect of healthcare for many decades. And as more is being learned, we're starting to turn that tide, that we want to bridge the gap to make sure that our health professionals, our future health professionals, and our families all have the information that they need to hopefully progress more pregnancies to a happy ending.
So can you just, from the last interview, define for us what a stillbirth is?
Yeah. So most states in the United States define stillbirth as the death of a baby in utero, so before birth, after 20 weeks of gestation.
And from, again, the last interview, we wanted to touch on what happens after the baby is delivered by the mom. So the child is pronounced when?
Well, this can vary a little bit. I would say in most cases, the baby is known to have passed before the mom actually delivers. So whether this is while mom is in labor or earlier, then that kind of depends on the circumstances. Sometimes the baby does die during labor or delivery, and so that diagnosis obviously may become a little bit different. But most families will learn that their baby has died before the baby has actually been delivered.
So even though they know that the baby is deceased prior to delivering the baby, the mom still goes through the usual delivering process.
That's exactly right. And it's something that a lot of people don't always understand or realize, that in addition to having just been told that their baby has died, these moms then face the physical, emotional, and very powerful experience of delivering their child. And while this can certainly be an enormous challenge, it's also a beautiful thing that many families appreciate. But I will say that it's something that if most of our society who hasn't experienced this doesn't realize that it's not just dealt in a very surgical, methodical manner, that there is an actual birth just as in any other pregnancy birth.
So how long are parents of the stillbirth given to hold the baby or keep the baby?
Yeah. So this can vary a lot. In most cases in the United States anymore, they really can have as much time as they think they need or want with their baby. Sometimes health professionals will unknowingly, or maybe they feel like this really is the best thing for the families, but they may try to kind of hurry that process along or encourage them to not spend as much time as they might otherwise. And this used to be very, very common practice 30, 40, 50 years ago. But we've learned that having that chance to spend time with their baby, and we use the phrase often, to give them the chance to say hello before they have to say goodbye. Mm-hmm. And it also gives parents an opportunity to do some of the parenting things that they will never do outside of that moment. Things like take photographs, read their baby a favorite bedtime story, introduce their baby to maybe older brothers and sisters or grandparents, aunts and uncles, anyone else within that family unit or friends that were also eagerly anticipating this baby's arrival. And we can, give the baby a bath and get them dressed and do some of those parenting things so that the family has a chance to make that connection with that baby. Sometimes this can be done in, a couple of hours. Some people will take a day or two or even 3. In general, most of the time, however long the mom is in the hospital has some impact on what time the baby really is allowed to be with the parents, because obviously leaving the hospital is a major milestone in that process. But there are also some individuals who will leave the hospital earlier and choose to spend additional time with their baby, either at the funeral home or maybe in their own private home, and those kinds of scenarios too.
So for a baby who is stillbirth, parents are encouraged to, and do they, make funeral arrangements, plan for cremation? How is that handled?
Yeah, so again, if the baby has gone past 20 weeks of gestation, then most states require the family to handle disposition. So they're required by law to either have their baby buried or cremated. There are some hospital facilities that have processes within their internal facilities to help assist with like a mass cremation if that's something that the family chooses, or is often offered if there's extreme financial concern about some of the cremation or burial costs associated with that. But otherwise, most families will incur the services of a funeral home to help them bury their baby or cremate their baby just as they would any other relative who has passed.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, along with my student co-host, nursing student, Virginia Gavin. And today we're talking to Lindsey Wimmer, the executive director of non-for-profit organization, the Star Legacy Foundation. So, Lindsey, tell us a little bit about stillbirths. Are they automatically given an autopsy?
No, they are not. And this is something that is a little bit different from a lot of unexpected pediatric deaths. So, first I will say that not all stillbirths are unexpected. Sometimes the baby will have a genetic or anatomic abnormality that is diagnosed during the pregnancy, and so the family and the health professionals may have some concerns about whether or not the baby will actually survive through the entire pregnancy or survive labor and delivery and beyond. But the vast majority of the time, these are unexpected or unanticipated deaths. But the testing is not an automatic. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we feel like has maybe held some of the research back. And it certainly creates a problem for some frequency in which we're able to give families an answer. Because in about half of these situations, the families will never know why their baby died or what happened because an answer is never able to be given to them. Mm-hmm. In many of those cases, part of the reason for that is that further testing or autopsies are not conducted. And that's simply because it is at the discretion of the families if they choose to do that or not. Okay. In some facilities, they have better access to pathologists who are specially trained in these types of deaths, or certain technologies that may make it easier to identify a cause. Some don't have access to those resources, so that can be problematic as well. And the finances can be certainly troubling to some families. Again, there are a lot of individual hospital facilities or health systems, pathology groups who will offer discounted services or maybe even free testing options for families, but this isn't across the board. And so some families may really have a strong interest in some of this testing, but it's financially problematic for them because this is usually a service that is not covered by insurance companies. So that's another kind of complicating factor in the autopsy frequency rate. And we also know that a lot of times it's just a personal preference or personal choice, because families may feel like any testing won't bring their baby back, or that it won't give them an answer that they are content with. A lot of times our health professionals are also very concerned about encouraging testing, because testing may be done and there still isn't an answer or an obvious cause of death that we can provide the family with. But at Star Legacy, one of the things that we try to help families understand in that moment is that sometimes knowing what did not cause the death can be just as beneficial, particularly when thinking about future pregnancies, because knowing what did or did not cause this particular outcome could have major implications for whether or not a family needs to have any further testing or treatment considerations before pursuing the pregnancy. It may impact whether or not they opt to try to have another baby or not. So sometimes the value of autopsies in this situation goes beyond just the immediate cause of death, even though that tends to be where our focus is in that moment for obvious reasons.
So speaking of that, what is the percentage of mothers who go on to have another healthy delivery?
Yeah, so we know that about 80% of women who have a stillbirth will have another pregnancy within the next 18 to 24 months. And so there is a large percentage of people who do that. However, we also know that women who have had a previous stillbirth or neonatal death are anywhere from 5 to 10 times more likely to have another poor outcome. And so that can be very, very scary for obvious reasons for families. One good piece of this is that most of the time having had a history of a stillbirth or neonatal death will put these mothers into what we call a high-risk protocol, or consider them now a high-risk pregnancy moving forward. And so any future pregnancies receive a different level of care and different monitoring and testing options that may not be available to individuals who don't have high-risk factors present. So we actually have a pretty good success rate despite that extra risk, but it requires the use of some of this additional testing and monitoring to do so.
So let's take a quick break. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, along with my student co-host Virginia Gavin. And today we're talking with Lindsey Wimmer, the executive director of the non-for-profit organization, the Star Legacy Foundation. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Women Heart is in a race to save lives. Heart disease is the #1 killer of women. It's 80% preventable if you know the facts. Millions of women are living with or at risk of different types of heart disease, like AFib, which is a type of irregular heartbeat. It affects both women and men, but women with AFib have a higher risk of stroke and death than men. Get educated. See your doctor. Know the facts. Diet and exercise are key to staying healthy. Know the risks. Women Heart does something really unique, solely focusing on women and providing peer-to-peer support. To win this race, we all have to do it together. Our hearts beat as one. To learn more, visit womenheart.org.
We now return to your family's health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
And thanks for being with us today. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, along with my student co-host, Virginia Gavin. And today we're talking with Lindsey Wimmer, the executive director of the non-for-profit organization, the Star Legacy Foundation. Hi, Lindsey. One of our questions was relevant to the siblings and the visitors who wants to see the baby. And you alluded to this a little bit, but what has been the reaction of the siblings? And is there age criteria? Because I can imagine siblings of certain ages don't do well if they were to see their sibling who has passed away. What has been the reaction? What has been, in your experience, the best way to handle that?
Yeah. So you're right, there is a lot of variation, and it depends a lot on the developmental age of the child. And so I think, it always comes back to a personal decision, and the parents need to decide for themselves, what they think is best, because they know their child better than anyone. But I really do encourage people to think about actually introducing their older siblings or their older children to their siblings, especially if it is later in the pregnancy where the child is old enough that they've really been anticipating this baby along with the parents, and they've watched mom's belly grow, and they have probably talked about what it's going to mean to be a big brother or big sister, those types of conversations. So to suddenly have it just kind of disappear without any concrete experiences to wrap around that can be really confusing and challenging for children. But in general, some of the things that I like to help them do is just maybe give them a little bit of anticipation about what they might see or what they might expect. And in my experience, the children actually handle the scenario so wonderfully. And in many cases, they probably model better behavior on coping with their grief than the adults in the room. And it's really kind of refreshing sometimes, because they may be the ones that have the innocence to ask the question that everybody in the room is wondering, but nobody else wants to ask. And so we see that happen a lot. One thing that can be really hard for adults to watch with children is they will be sad too, just like any of the rest of us, as is appropriate, because it's a very sad scenario. And in our desire to try to protect them from those types of emotions, it can be really easy to just try to keep them away from it. But I've seen time and time again where if we, introduce them to this baby in a loving and caring way and say, this is who your baby brother is, and give them their name, and maybe even let them hold them or hold their hand or take a picture with them, do some of those types of things. They may have that moment to cry, and they may be very, very upset. That's hard to watch. But within a couple of minutes, they usually come around, and they're the ones that in the pictures are beaming and are so excited and proud, because they recognize that they are still a big brother or sister, and they're proud of their baby, and they enjoy being part of that process. The other thing that we've heard from siblings as they get older then is that those that have that experience are grateful that's because it's such a big part of who they are and their family story. And so to have a presence as part of that is very important to them. So I've had many families say that they wish they had introduced their kids to them when they hadn't, but I've never had any family regret introducing their older children. So I always just try to pass that along to families. If for whatever reason the families choose not to do that, there's still ways to give them a tangible connection to this baby. One of my favorite things is to take, a favorite children's book or any type of object like that, and put the baby's handprints or footprints on that, and then later take and put the big brother or sister's handprints and footprints on the same item. Yes. And so that as they get older, they may not have a picture of themselves with their baby, but at least they can say, this is our special book, and we both touch this book and have our handprints. This is the book that connects me to my sibling. And so sometimes we, in our desire to protect them, we don't realize how much of a major life event this is for them too, and we want to try to kind of normalize it as much as we can, but also create an environment where they can love this baby and identify a way to process how that has all happened in their context. I think what you tell them and how you tell them obviously varies greatly depending on their own age and developmental stage. But even the young toddlers, as young as 15 or 18 months old, they know that something is going on. So even if they don't have a true grasp of what pregnancy is and certainly what death is and all of those things, they do know that their parents are upset, and they know that suddenly things are different in their life. Maybe people are bringing meals over that doesn't normally happen, or those kinds of things. And so sometimes what we discuss with them can be as simple as, we wanted to bring a baby home so that you could be a big brother or sister, but we don't get to bring this baby home. It's nothing that mommy did wrong. It's nothing that you did wrong. But the best thing you can do right now is give mom and dad lots of hugs. And that may be all that's needed to really describe the experience, but it at least puts some words to the stress and the emotion that they are being exposed to. As they get older, they may ask more questions, and then you can continue to respond to those questions in the developmental stage that they are in at that point. But just trying to be very simple and honest is usually the best way.
So you have a non-for-profit organization called Star Legacy Foundation, which helps people deal with the tragedy of stillbirth. So before your services in your organization was formed, were there bereavement services provided for the mother, father, or siblings in the hospital setting before your organization?
Yeah, there definitely were, and I think the kind of wonderful thing, but also heartbreaking thing about that is that not every hospital has the same types of services available. And most of the time what we have found is that hospitals that have really strong bereavement programs or a lot of support services are the result of one or two or maybe a handful of health professionals within the system that really recognize the need and were advocates for that type of programming within their system. If a hospital or a health system doesn't have additional resources or doesn't have someone that really identifies that need in their community, then sometimes there are health systems that just don't offer those types of programs to families. And so that was really why we created some of the programs that we offered as a way to bridge some of those gaps, because we know that there are some places doing phenomenal work, and that's amazing. But not everyone has access to that type of care.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, along with my student co-host, Virginia Gavin. And today we're talking with Lindsey J. Wimmer, the executive director of the non-for-profit organization, the Star Legacy Foundation. And we wanted to ask you on that, how long? I know that the Star Legacy provides services. Are your services provided in the Nassau, Suffolk area, or are these services extended to the tri-state area?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have we actually have a couple of chapters in your area. The New York metro area definitely serves all of Long Island, and as well as the greater New York City metro area. We also have a Western New York chapter that focuses more on Buffalo, Rochester, and some of those kinds of places. But then we also have a number of programs that are available kind of really coast to coast, because they're offered virtually through like video conferencing, or a lot of our peer support is done through text and email. So even if we're able to connect someone in your area with a peer support person that lives on Long Island or in the close vicinity, maybe it may be more comfortable for them to still make that initial connection through text or email or phone. So a lot of our programs are available regardless of where people live.
So we just want you to make it available, the link, a website that we can contact you, or for those that are listening can reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.starlegacyfoundation.org. If you are wanting to connect with someone in your local area, you'll see a spot along the main menu to connect with a chapter, and you'll see all of our different chapters listed there. Or through social media, if you just search for Star Legacy, you'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The New York Metro chapter also has a very active Facebook presence as well, so that would be another way to connect with the local chapter too.
So now, are hospitals aware of your this non-for-profit organization, the Star Legacy Foundation, or and they make the connection? Are social workers aware of your organization so that they can connect the family mother to you, or is the family expected to connect to you without the connection of the hospital as being the liaison?
Yeah, so we accept connections from all places. So we're certainly working harder and harder all the time to make those connections with the hospitals so that they can establish that for the families, because it's really hard for the families at that moment to have the strength and the energy to reach out in that way. So it is certainly much easier if it's facilitated by the health facility. We currently work with a little over 200 hospitals and clinics throughout the country. So for those facilities, then definitely we can get the referral and kind of have some of that initial contact through them, which is fantastic. But if someone does not learn about us through their hospital, then we're absolutely happy to connect with them in any way. We also try to do a lot of work with funeral homes or different faith organizations, anybody that may encounter this family through some of the additional processes, because we want them to know that we're here to help in any way at any stage. It doesn't just have to be immediately from the hospital. But that's definitely one of the efforts that our chapters are putting a lot of energy into, is making sure that as many hospitals and health professionals across the country know that we exist so that we can expedite those connections with families whenever possible.
So if you have any parting thoughts in a couple of words, what would you leave with our audience regarding stillbirths?
Stillbirth. I think the biggest thing I would say is it's more common than you think. If you expand to all forms of pregnancy and infant loss, 1 in 4 women will experience this type of loss in their lifetime. And so if it hasn't happened to you, I promise that you know somebody that has experienced this type of tragedy. And so don't be afraid to ask them about it. Don't be afraid to offer some support. Even if you don't know the perfect thing to say, just let them know that you're there, you're willing to listen, and that you acknowledge that this is a very challenging time in their life for them. And if you are pregnant or hope to be pregnant sometime soon, I would encourage you to ask your health professionals all the questions that you might have around how to protect this pregnancy and how to reduce any risk factors that you or your baby might have. Certainly reach out to Star Legacy if you want some information, because while not all of these losses are going to be preventable, many of them are, and we're learning more and more all the time about how we can be able to reduce those risks. And obviously, as much as the bereavement support is a major goal of ours, our ultimate goal would be to reduce how many families have to deal with these types of deaths at all.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Lindsey Wimmer, Executive Director of the Star Legacy Foundation. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the Nursing Department here at Nassau Community College, along with my student nursing co-host, Virginia Gavin, and we thank you for listening to this week's edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the Nursing Department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
The views expressed on air are not necessarily those of WHPC, its management, or Nassau Community College. Responsible opposing viewpoints will be considered by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu or by mail at WHPC 1 Education Drive, Garden City, New York 11530. Thanks for listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Some knowledge belongs to us and us alone. The way our girlfriends walk, talk, touch their hair. Details that only a sister can know about her girls. But what about our other girls? The ones we carry with us every day. Our bond with our sister girls gives life. But knowing your breasts can save it. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susan G. Coleman and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
And greetings. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, I am so happy to have as my guest Udo Erasmus, and we'll be talking about a lot of issues in natural health, including something that Udo is a specialist in, which is oils, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Udo has an extensive education in biochemistry, genetics, and biology, as well as nutrition, and a master's degree in counseling. His focus is on sustainable energy, water management, as well as healthcare based in nature and human nature. And he has a thirst for the of the heart, resulting in total health. Udo is truly a pioneer in the health wellness space, and he created machinery to extract oils and actually brought widely known flax oil to the marketplace with his company, Udo's Choice. Udo is also the acclaimed author of Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, and created an 8-step process that takes into consideration all of the elements of whole health that include mental health, presence, and awareness, our life energy, and being in harmony with nature and humanity. And you can find out more at, we'll let Udo tell you the best website to find him, because I have so many here. So thank you so much for joining us today, Udo.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be have the chance to be on with you.
Now, you are featured so many places. Most of our listeners have probably heard of Udo's Choice Oil. It's in every single health food store. And I did not even realize, as long as I have been aware of you, that you actually created a way to get the oil out of the flaxseed.
Yeah, that's actually the most important part of it, because oils are our most sensitive nutrients, and they're very easily damaged by light, by oxygen, by heat. Omega-3s are 5 times more sensitive than even the omega-6 oils, so they need to be treated with a lot of care. And we actually give oils the least care of any nutrients. We throw them in the frying pan. The way they're processed by industry is very destructive. And so I got poisoned by pesticides, and I was looking for self-help because the doctors couldn't help me. And when I found out about this, I said, we should be making oils with health in mind, not with shelf life in mind. And that was the impetus behind creating that method, because it's not complicated once you know that you have to protect them from light, oxygen, and heat while they're being pressed, settled, filled, filtered, and all of that, to make sure that no light, no oxygen, and no heat gets to damage the oil during that process.
So, Udo, share with us, what is the best place for people to find out more about you and your work? Because I have so many contact informations here.
Well, I have 2 websites. One is called udoschoice.com, and the other one is udoerasmus.com, ERASMUS.com. Those 2. the products that I've worked with are on the first website, and the second one we're talking about the field of total health, because everything affects health. And so if you want to be really healthy, you have to give everything its due. And so that's a very big project that I started a few years ago, although I started thinking about it when I was 6 years old.
Well, let's go back into your experience with pesticide poisoning. How do you know that you must have felt ill, and how do you know that that's what caused it?
I was spraying them as a job. In a previous life, my marriage broke up, and I wanted to kill something, so I took a job as a pesticide sprayer. Seriously, and I was a little upset, and I sprayed them very carelessly. And after 3 years, I licked some off my fingers because the people we sprayed for wouldn't allow us to clean up in their place. I guess they didn't want pesticides around. So we couldn't clean up, and I was eating my sandwich and inadvertently licked it off my fingers because I'd been spraying in the morning, and I just got sick. Cramps, nausea, dizziness, no energy. If I had turned my head, it felt like my head turned, but my brain didn't. Obviously my brain turned too, but that's what it felt like. And so I went to the doctor and said, "What do you have for pesticide poisoning?" She said, "Nothing." And that was the day I got really serious about accepting that my health is my responsibility and I can't farm it out to somebody else. So,
well,
that's what got me started that way.
You went to doctors, and obviously they probably did not pay any attention to what you were saying. So then what happened?
No, she just said, "We don't have anything for pesticide poisoning." So it was a very short conversation. And so then I said, "Well, I'm not ready to quit here." So I have background in biochemistry and genetics. So I started going through the journals, looking at everything that has to do with health and nutrition and disease and nutrition. Because if the body's made out of food, then food is probably the first place you should look when something isn't working, to get it working, to raise your standard of food intake. You can rebuild your body 98% in 1 year. So that's what I did. So then I got into water and air later, but the idea that if your body is made out of food, water, and air, there's where you need to look at. There's where you need to look first when something doesn't work, because it's usually because the standard is too low. If you set a low standard, you're going to get a low standard of health. If you raise the standard, then you're going to get a higher standard of health, because your body is always turning over. 98% of the atoms in your body today will be gone, will have been removed and replaced a year from now. And that's why healing is possible. We're a continuous major construction site. That's why healing is possible. If your body didn't continuously turn over, healing would not be possible.
So I'd like to remind our listeners that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. This is Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, and today my guest is Udo Erasmus, very famous Udo, who is the person who developed Udo's Choice. And we're talking about his personal journey that led him to understand deeply about the fact that health is certainly related to food and lifestyle. And in particular, his wonderful book, it was groundbreaking when it came out, and it's still exactly full of information called Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. So how did you come up with that name? Because at the time you wrote the book, Udo, it was sort of an anti-fat time in history. Everybody was with the low-fat labels, which is very dangerous because all they do is jazz it up with sugar instead of fat.
Right, exactly. Well, the way the original book was called Fats and Oils, and it was a very boring title. And when I started giving talks, I realized in talking to people that the most important thing that people need to know is that there are two completely opposite stories on fats. And people were fat phobic in those days, and they always said, "Oh, fats are bad, so we should, we should lower them as much as possible." And that completely ignored that there are omega-3s and omega-6 that are absolutely essential for health. And so the titles, after I started giving lectures, that became the title of my lectures: Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. And the title is pretty catchy because people go, "Huh? What? Fats that heal? Fats that kill?" And so when I expanded and updated the book, I changed the title to Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. Started in 86. I got poisoned in 1980. Fats and Oils came out in 1986. Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill came out in 1993.
And really, you go into so much great information about the fact that they're not all together. Like, I actually find almost everything that has that fat-free label is really junk food. And I don't see it as much now as a decade ago. So the information might be filtering through.
Yeah, I think we've turned a corner on the low-fat business. Because we in 1979, what's his name? The report on nutrition and health, 1979, and then they put carbs at the base of the food pyramids, the thing you should be eating most, and fats on top, the thing you should be eating least. And what they missed completely was, it isn't the fats that are bad. It's the way they're processed that damages them, and the way they're used in the frying pan that damages them, and makes fats more health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition, and more health benefits come from getting your oils right and getting the right oils and not damaging them than any other part of nutrition. And so I just got, and then when I got poisoned in 1980, in 1981 it was established that omega-3s are also essential nutrients, which means you can't make them, so you have to bring them in from outside. And if you don't get enough, you can't stay healthy. Your health will go down. You will get deficiency symptoms that are degenerative in nature, and if you don't get enough long enough, you die. That's what essential means. If you bring them back when you're not getting enough and your health is going down, then all of the deficiency symptoms are reversed and you get your health back. Because the moment that you take responsibility for making sure enough of them land in your body, life knows what to do with them. But life can't do a good job in building your body if you don't take responsibility for making sure that all of the building blocks that it needs to do that job end up in your body in optimum quantities if you want optimum health.
I totally agree. And I think another thing that happened to fats and why it got a bad rap incorrectly and dangerously is because of the hysteria in terms of cholesterol, which, of course, our entire brain is like a lump of cholesterol. So the whole promotion of the concept of bringing cholesterol to these low levels, and one of the ways is by eliminating fats, I think is very ill-advised.
Well, right, and not only that, it is also wrong because there's no cholesterol in any of the plant fats. So
that's correct.
So even that was a misunderstanding or a misrepresentation. So and yeah, cholesterol. If you don't have cholesterol in your diet, your body makes it. Why? Because it has many important functions, in the cell membranes, and to make vitamin D, and to make bile acids, and to make the steroid hormones, the male and female hormones, as well as the adrenal hormones. So cholesterol plays exceptionally important roles. If you literally could find a way not to have any cholesterol in your body, you would actually be dead. So to demonize cholesterol is contrary to good health.
Right, and everything's, a much more complex story than that, and we will continue our story after we take our break right here. And I'd like to remind you listeners, you are listening to Herbally Yours right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen live online at nccradio.org or on iHeartRadio. For more information on today's guest or topic, you can email us at whpc@ncc.edu. Stay tuned. Herbally Yours will be right back.
145 over 92.
180 over 111.
I had a heart attack and a cardiac arrest and then a stroke.
Your blood pressure numbers could change your life. Lowering your high blood pressure could save you from a heart attack or stroke. If you've stopped your treatment plan, restart it or talk to your doctor about creating one that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
Now I'm, trying to get better, stronger than ever.
Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
And welcome back to more right here on Herbally Yours. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Ellen Kamai, the Natural Nurse at naturalnurse.com. And today we are so happy to have our very famous guest with us today, Mr. Udo Erasmus. And Udo is a pioneer in the health and wellness space. He's the author of Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. If you haven't read that book, you certainly may want to get it on your shelf. And also, he really brought flax oil. Many of you probably have heard of flax oil, of flaxseed oil, really to the marketplace with Udo's Choice. And you can find out more at udoschoice.com or udoerasmus.com. Lots of great information there. And thank you so much for joining us today, Udo. So you were talking about some of the benefits of fats. Why don't we go into that? Some of the benefits of healthy fats. First, you have to choose the right fat.
Right. Well, every cell has a membrane around it, and that membrane is made out of fats. So it's kind of like it's your clothing for your cells. If you took the membrane out, everything would fall out. So that's just one. But if you look at the health benefits in another way, the omega-3s, which are the ones that are too low in 99% of the population, they're also the most damaged by the processing. Omega-3s, when they're made with health in mind and not damaged, they lower most of the major cardiovascular risk factors. They decrease inflammation. We've done studies with athletes that if they take the right amount, which is about a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, mixed in food, spread out over the course of the day, their stamina goes up by 40 to 60% if you measure their sport, doing it to exhaustion before they start and then a month later. 40 to 60% increase in stamina. They improve brain function. In fact, there's some research that says they can raise IQ from 3 to 9 points. They're extremely important during pregnancy because when a woman is pregnant, she has to maintain her brain, which is 60% fat if you take the water out, and she has to build another brain in her womb. So if she doesn't have enough omega-3s in her diet, then the child will take omega-3s out of her brain because nature favors the future over the past, and mom is the past and the child is the future. If necessary, nature will take them off the mom and give them to the kid. So very important for women to make sure that they have a reliable source of both essential fatty acids in their diet, both for their own health and the health of their children. And when people don't get enough, when women don't get enough, then they get more depression, more chronic fatigue, more fibromyalgia, more collagen, and more inflammatory diseases. They get those 2 to 15 times more frequently than men do. And it's because of the depletion of the essential fatty acids during pregnancy. Each child gets less than the previous child, and each child depletes the mother further. All of this has been measured.
So
that's why they say.
I want to jump in here, Udo, because what you're saying is so important and is completely substantiated by a range of scientific studies. For instance, they have done studies on children, longevity studies, testing them at 5 years old and finding that their intellectual capacity is linked to the DHA status of the mother during pregnancy. This is well known.
Yep. And again, it makes complete sense. If you have something that is required for any function in the body and is essential, then whatever it does in the body is not going to get done properly if you don't get enough of it. That's in the definition of essential nutrients. So the minerals, the vitamins, the essential amino acids from proteins, and the 2 essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6 from fats, fit that definition. So what else? We've done studies with athletes where they tell us they sleep better. We get rants and raves from people about how their skin is nicer because omega-3 and 6 together form a barrier in the skin against the loss of moisture. So they are nature's moisturizer, and the best way to oil your skin is from within. If you put it on the outside, that can be helpful, but what you need is actually from the inside. And
so let me ask you this, Udo. What about, how would somebody know? Like, how do you feel about the testing, which is available? Of course, usually most conventional physicians don't order it, although they should, about actually finding out your own ratio.
Well, you can get a fatty acid test done, and you can do them either on plasma or serum fatty acids. You can get red blood cell membrane fatty acids, and you can get fat deposit fatty acids. And you're going to get different results depending on which test you do. So the doctors used to send me their fatty acid profiles and he'd say, hey, what does this mean? So the way I deal with it is basically I deal with it by getting twice as much omega-3 as omega-6. That way I get enough omega-6 not to become omega-6 deficient, because if you get too much of one, it'll crowd out the other. And the omega-3s are the ones that get you all the energy and that get you the most benefits, simply because most people are too low in it. And I don't do any measurements other than if my skin is dry, I need more oil. I need more in winter than in summer, because in winter I burn more oil for energy because it's cold. So I don't measure it. I just make sure that I get enough of both in my diet.
So you can feel that. And I'd like to remind you, listeners, that you're listening to Herbally Yours right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, and today my guest is Mr. Udo Erasmus, and he is the author of Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, and also the head of Udo's Choice, and you can find him at udoschoice.com or udoerasmus.com, and he's explaining the difference between different kinds of fats and, you know, the health benefits of fats, which really are linked to health and longevity. So what are some of the bad foods that people might want to stay away from?
Well, let me say just one more good thing about omega-3s.
Please.
I call them the body's fat-burning fire starter, and they're very helpful if people want to lose weight, and the weight that they want to lose is either water from inflammation, and omega-3s decrease inflammation. So literally people will pee out the extra weight if it's water held in tissues. And they also increase fat burning in the body. The omega-3s do that exceptionally well, and they also suppress appetite, so you're less likely to overeat. Carbs will get you into a carb addiction cycle because your blood sugar will go really low, and then you'll get cravings, and then you eat too much. And the carb addiction cycle is best broken by making good fats your major fuel. So, okay, now let's do all the bad stuff. Okay.
Right. What would your list of that include?
Well, the damaged oils that we use do two things. One is they increase inflammation, and that comes from you take molecules that exist in nature, you damage them and turn them into molecules that never existed in nature. When they get into your body, they occupy spaces that essential fatty acids should occupy, but they can't do the work because they're different. So they interfere, and then the immune system says, what the hell have we got here? And then it increases inflammation to try and isolate, it actually slows down circulation to isolate the poison, to try and figure out what to do with them. But life never made a program for breaking down damaged molecules that never existed in nature, because they never existed in nature, so it never had to do that. So then they pile up, you get more inflammation. Inflammation is behind a long list of our degenerative diseases. So that's the first one. And the second one is damaged oils decrease energy levels, and some people notice that whenever they eat fried food, they actually end up feeling heavy and tired. And then you're basically poisoning yourself with damaged oil molecules, and they pile up because it's not easy to get rid of them. So the more you eat, the more get in your body. Usually 2 to 4 tablespoons of damaged oils, including the fried foods, every day. And after a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, a lot of things break down. The inflammatory diseases, the arthritic diseases, diabetes, cancer, they all have inflammatory factors. So we're talking about, and the research says, if you want to summarize it, if you optimize your intake of undamaged omega-3s, you can improve virtually every major degenerative condition of our time. That's a pretty strong statement.
It is, and I would say, as a provider myself, and I do see clients, that change makes such a palpable difference, and so quickly when they switch to healthy oils. Cut out the fat, and then, of course, where you're also getting those unhealthy oils is from pretty much all baked goods, like wheat products, cookies, cakes. They all say on the label hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated oil, as well as fried foods. And when you switch instead to a diet that's high in omega-3s, let's say use something like flax oil and pour it. I don't fry it. I make steamed vegetables and then just put it right on top. It's delicious.
Yeah, you don't want to fry the good oils. Because if you're frying the good oils, omega-3s get damaged more than omega-6s, get damaged more than saturated fats when you fry them. So the best oils become the most toxic when you don't treat them with care. And that's important to remember. My recommendation for people is everybody has a frying pan in the house, pretty much. So go get the frying pan, pull it out wherever you're hiding it, turn it upside down, hit yourself on the head with it really hard so it's associated with pain, and then throw it out. Because
I don't use one at all. I only steam, and then I put healthy oils on the food, and some seasonings. But we are at the end of our time together. I want to thank you so much for being our guest today, Mr. Udo Erasmus, author of Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. You can find him at udoschoice.com or udoerasmus.com. And I want to thank you, listeners, for tuning into Herbally Yours once again, produced right here in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamai at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.
The views expressed on air are not necessarily those of WHPC, its management, or Nassau Community College. Responsible opposing viewpoints will be considered by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu or by mail at WHPC 1 Education Drive, Garden City, New York 11530. Thanks for listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.